On this episode of China Unscripted, it's the Lunar New Year. We also go over President Trump's State of the Union address, what's going on Reddit, and joining us to talk about the situation in Venezuela, Juan Ravell, the founder of the satirical Venezuelan news site, the Bipolar Capybara. Hi, welcome to the China Unscripted podcast. I'm Chris Chappell.
I'm Shelley Zhang.
And I'm Matt Gnezda.
Be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Spotify, and leave us all kinds of reviews and stars.
Not all kinds, just the best.
The best kinds of stars and reviews. So first of all, happy Chinese New Year's, everyone. It's the year of the pig. What animal are you?
I'm a dog.
I know, Matt, but what zodiac animal are you?
I'm the year of the dog.
Oh my gosh, I see what I did there. Shelley, what animal are you?
I'm a pig.
Oh, this is your year.
It is, but that's actually not a good thing in the Chinese zodiac.
What?
It your cycle year is supposed to be like a bad luck year for you.
So your year is a bad year.
Yeah, I think it's. Well, I don't know a lot about the Chinese zodiac, but I think it's supposed to be like that. Like once it cycles back around, it's kind of like examining like what you've been up to in the last 12 years. So like it's supposed to not necessarily be a positive year.
I don't know. 2018 was my zodiac year, and I had a great year.
I mean, I'm not saying it's correct. Like also like this is like the very shallow version of the Chinese zodiac that I know about. That's probably not, because like obviously not everybody born in the same year has the same fortune in all these different ways.
No, one anecdotal example completely proves my point.
Okay. Well, I was going to say this is like the Chinese, menu zodiac version of the zodiac. Like where
what you read on a Chinese food menu. Yeah.
Well, like, no, it doesn't talk about that, about your year being unlucky, but like the whole thing about like all pigs have these characteristics. All dragons have these characteristics. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what zodiac year are you?
I'm an ox, so I don't know when my year is. I think in a year or two.
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years.
2 years. Oh, it's a long
you
to
have
wait.
The next is the rat and then the ox.
Oh, I know the stupid rat in front of me.
Yes, he tricked you.
He rides on your back and then jumps ahead.
So I learned this on a Chinese placemat, but there was a race between all of the animals. And, hey, it looked like the ox was going to win. But, like, I guess at the end of this race there was a river or something, which seems like a bad way to plan a race, to have a river right at the end. Anyways, the ox was, like, wading its way through it, was going to win, but, like, the rat was on the ox's head. And then at the last second jumped ahead to the finish line. So it won, the rat. We all have rat as the winner of this stupid race because of a no-good trick.
Well, I mean, I think it's because the rat's clever and it made a bargain with the ox.
It's not clever. It's stupid.
It was clever. But here's my question. Dragons can fly. How did the dragon not win that race?
Not all can fly.
Yeah, Chinese dragons are different, Matt.
Was
not
it-
all dragons. Hashtag. Anyway, the cat in this story, that's totally the real way it happened, is not in the zodiac because it decided the race was stupid and it just took a nap instead.
Maybe I'm actually meant to be a cat. Because I gotta say, in hindsight, the race sounds pretty stupid. I got an idea. Let's have a race between, like, a rat and a dragon. Let's just throw those in there. That doesn't make any sense.
You forgot about, like, also the tiger, the goat, the snake. There are a lot
They
of
would
animals.
all eat each other, for the most part. I'm with a cat. Let's start a revolution. A cat revolution. Meow. Chairman Meow revolution.
Oh.
Well,
It doesn't matter if it's a black cat or a white cat.
this is definitely not your year, Shelley.
Yeah.
I can tell you that right now.
Wow. Okay.
But it's like day 4 and it's already not my year.
Nope. I'm going to see to it because I am now a year of a cat. Whoever is joining me from now on, say your year of the cat, and it's like a code, like we're these cool rebels.
You're these cool cats.
We're these cool cats rebelling against a stupid race and like how it rules our lives.
I think it actually, not everybody knows what all the zodiac animals are by a long shot. So, you could totally go around telling people you're the cat and they'd be like, oh, cool.
But those who listen to the podcast will know.
Okay, they'll know that it's a secret code for your rebellion.
A secret code or some sort of cat whistle.
Is that a thing?
Like a dog whistle?
He's making a joke.
A dog whistle, year of the dog. You're talking about your birth year, right?
No. There's a thing called a dog whistle.
But you said a cat whistle.
Yes, because you're
because
cats.
you said cat.
Yes, I said cat. This isn't my year either.
All right, so
well, you don't have any year as a cat.
Every year is my year as a cat. I like this idea. So, how did you guys celebrate the Lunar New Year?
I ate a pork chop.
You ate a pork chop.
It was a mistake, or it was an accident. I was traveling, so I wasn't I usually for Chinese New Year's Eve dinner. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to, make this big banquet with all this food, and you're supposed to eat, for example, a whole fish to represent abundance.
Because it sounds the same, right?
Yeah, it sounds like the phrase is nian nian you'll use, so you use abundance, but it also is fish, so it's different characters.
That's Chinese.
Same sound, and so you're supposed to have a fish and eat it, but leave a little bit on your plate, and also don't turn it over. Because then that would be you're flipping the fortune. So, yeah, you're supposed to do stuff like that. Instead, I was traveling, so I ate out at a restaurant, and I accidentally ordered a pork chop. It was not a Chinese restaurant. And then
accidentally?
Well, no, I on purpose ordered a pork chop, but then I realized that it was Chinese New Year's Eve, and the year of the pig was coming, and I just ate the pig.
What did you do for Chinese New Year, Chris?
Oh, I had a rat chop. Good thing it's not You're the Rat.
Yeah. I mean, you've eaten possum, so I could see you eating a rat. Maybe next time we go to Australia.
Something to
How about
look
next
forward
time
to.
we go to New York?
Oh, that's true. We can just get one for you in the subway.
Oh, my gosh. I can already feel my genes mutating. I went to this really cool party at a Chinese restaurant. They had somebody dress up as so there was two people. One was dressed up as a pig, but with the old Mandarin kind of uniform on, with the hat and the big flowing robes. And then there was somebody dressed up as a female giant pig. This one was in a bikini top with gigantic pork chops.
Are you serious?
I am serious. If you follow me on Instagram, you would see those pictures and the dance that person did.
What?
Yep, that's
a traditional New Year celebration.
I'll say.
Sounds more fun than watching the CCTV Chinese New Year gala, though.
Oh, but what could be less fun than that?
Yeah, every year everybody's like, "This is the worst thing ever," and they're like, "No, we had great ratings this year."
Everyone was forced to watch because it's the only thing on TV. If you don't know, every year Chinese state-run television hosts a Chinese New Year show. Actually, they call it the Spring Festival.
The Spring Festival show. And then it started, actually, in the year of the pig.
Really?
Yeah, it was 1983 was the first CCTV guy. I know it feels like it's been going on forever, but it really hasn't.
Well, happy birthday, Shelley.
Yeah. And then... it was I've never seen that one, but it started out, but I did see some of the ones in the 80s, and it started out much smaller and like a little tiny banquet room, and and now it's just this overblown mess that nobody enjoys watching, and it's full of propaganda. They have one thing they do a lot is these skits. Think Saturday Night Live type skits, but
bad.
Also
so think Saturday Night Live skits? Making fun of Saturday Night Live.
I guess they call them sketches, but so it's that kind of sketch, except it's performed live on it's performed in a banquet hall, kind of.
And the themes are whatever government policy is going on.
Yeah, often. I mean, they're usually there's one at least where somebody goes back but goes back home to the countryside for the New Year. And like, I didn't watch any of them this year because I was in Hawaii, and really there were much better things to do. But right. But last year, I remember there was one that was kind of controversial. Do you remember this, Chris? Where they went to Africa,
and they blessed the rains.
Well, it was about how China is, helping the Africans with all of these infrastructure projects and whatever.
Belt and road kind
of
stuff.
Yeah, so they're in this African village, and there's one African woman who's trying to match make, except this woman. It was played by a Chinese woman in blackface and also lots of padding.
Padding? I don't understand what you mean.
Like a fat suit.
Oh. That actually reminds me, there's been this photo going around the internets recently of, it was called the China-Africa Friendly Night 2019. And then, as usual, these things, there's several Chinese characters for words that describe how friendly China-Africa relations are. But the first word is just exploitation. I am now passing my phone around so everyone can see it.
Oh.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't. But, exploitation, then it says innovation, efficiency. It's hard to see because some people's heads are blocking, and transcendence.
Transcendent exploitation. But yeah, it was a fun little thing to see.
That sounds like it was a machine translation thing.
Maybe. I wonder what the actual Chinese character
Well, maybe
is.
it's like the exploitation of resources in the literal sense, to take resources out of the ground.
Let me see.
Oh.
And abuse the workers in the process. I think that's the literal term.
That started off as something true and then it became something not. All right, Shelley's looking it up.
I think the Chinese actually, I don't know why. Okay, I'm looking up.
Keep in mind, Shelley, speaking to the microphone. All right, well, while Shelley's looking this up, Matt and I can carry on some thrilling conversation.
Yes, Chris, we shall.
Oh, gosh,
So
Shelley.
it should actually be development. I don't know why they...
Freudian slip. Is that an appropriate use of Freudian slip?
I don't... Okay, sure.
Okay, we'll see. Yeah, so it sounds like, the new year is off to a great start for everyone.
Yeah, especially you, Chris. I wish I could have seen that pig dance.
You're not following me on Instagram because I videotaped it.
I'm actually not really that great on Instagram. I'm kind of getting back on Instagram after years of not really being on it.
Well, I know the first thing you can do then is check out that video.
Okay.
All right. Well, so the big news that happened this week is we finally got a State of a Union address. I know. I mean, it's between the CCTV New Year's Gala and the State of the Union address. That's what I wait all year
Wait. We're talking about China right now, Chris.
for. Yeah, well, I know this might be a shock to you, Shelley, but one of the things President Trump mentioned in the State of the Union was...
China!
Exactly.
I'm sure it was all good. All good stuff.
Well, he said he didn't blame China for stealing U.S. jobs and intellectual property. He blames past U.S. leaders. He didn't name names, so I was left in the dark.
All of them?
All of them. That is, he has a point. There was a lot of...
Let's start with Nixon.
Nixon. Can we end with Nixon?
So Trump doesn't blame China. He blames, past leaders in general.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And, but then he mentioned the trade negotiations, basically, and how it needs to end the intellectual property theft, or the theft of U.S. jobs.
Well, that's a nice thought.
It is a nice thought.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is, the kind of changes that, well, not just Trump, the kind of changes everyone wants China to make would...
Except for the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, exactly. It would require, fundamental systemic changes with how the Communist Party runs things, and I don't think they're going to be too into that idea.
Well, especially since right now, I think what the Communist Party thinks the economy needs is more stability, which means more control over how they can manipulate the economy into growing more and not, slowing down enough so that there's actual unrest. And,
So more of the same.
Or-
more of the same
or
socialism with Chinese characteristics.
more control in different ways. Like I think recently, some of the speeches and things that have gone on at the central government level have been about how state-run companies are important. So it's kind of like more consolidation of things under state-run industries instead of what happened in the 90s, which was kind of like offloading all these bankrupting state-run industries and privatizing them. It's kind of now seems to be going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's in many ways it's like the Communist Party is kind of showing its hand more and more. Like I don't think anyone is under the misguided notion that China is somehow liberalizing, or
No.
becoming more open society.
Actually, I think that's one thing that people have kind of realized more in the last few years is that it is not, let's say, 5 years or so.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is people wrongly attribute it to Xi Jinping, saying that, like, oh, China, there's like this idea that China was going down that track, but then Xi Jinping somehow derailed it, which I don't think is the case. I think the most you can say is that they were very strategic about how they put up a front.
The whole bide your time thing.
Yeah, like, I mean, sure, so in the 90s, you shut down a state-owned enterprise, but you give the resulting company, the private company, it belongs to, a high-ranking Communist Party member or one of their families, and then you still have party secretaries. So it was only like a very, very surface-level change.
It was basically that the state no longer had to carry the burden of the failing company.
Yeah.
And pay people who weren't really doing anything. But back in the old days, you'd have like this phrase in Chinese called like the iron rice bowl, which is meant it's unbreakable. Like you keep your job no matter what, and that's what it was like to work for a state-owned companies, was that you couldn't be fired.
Sounds nice.
But someday the iron rice bowl rusts.
That was very profound.
Nice. But so, yeah, it will be very interesting to see. Like, we have now less than a month left before the 90-day trade talk period between China and the U.S. is over. And if there is no agreement reached, the U.S. government will level 25% tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. I think those are the right numbers. Those are the right numbers. So, yeah, I'm really curious to see what kind of trade deal comes out of this.
I mean, it's also possible they could just extend the deadline.
Extend the deadline. I mean, there's many things that could happen. I can't really guess what it will be. I do think it's interesting how Trump talks about Xi Jinping, because this may surprise you, but Trump is often very good at like belittling and making fun of people he doesn't like. But so far, it seems that like whenever he's talked about Xi Jinping, he's done it in a way that acknowledges that he needs to, in some ways, save face.
I think Trump maybe personally likes Xi Jinping.
I mean, what's not to like?
I mean, Winnie the Pooh is really cuddly.
It is. The first thing I thought when I saw Xi Jinping is I want to cuddle with that man.
I mean, compared to the last few Chinese leaders, Xi Jinping is cuddlier.
That's true. Puyi, though, he seemed nice and cuddly.
You're going way back now.
Puyi, the last emperor of the Qing dynasty?
That's right. I mean, Shelley said several of the last leaders, so I'm including him.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine, Chris.
Well, now I feel weird having opened myself up, so we'll just go on to something new. So, great idea, China Uncensored Let's Play.
What would we play, though?
Anything.
And is this like a live thing?
It could be streamed live, yeah.
So you want us to go on Twitch and stream a Let's Play?
Or whatever platforms people use. People use YouTube.
We could play that Three Kingdoms board game that you guys got me for my birthday.
Matt, this is like...
I know what a Let's Play is, but We could put a camera over. No, that doesn't work.
It's like it's computer games.
No, I know. I just wanted to come outside the box.
Okay.
Okay.
That would be an outside the box Let's Play.
I mean, who does Let's Plays for board games, right? We could be an innovator in our field.
That's true.
I wonder if someone does do Let's Plays for board games.
I don't want to know the answer to that,
Okay.
okay? We definitely came up with this ourselves.
All right. So let us know if you'd like us to do that. Either the board game or the real thing.
Well, if it was a real thing, what should we play? Is the real?
I think it could be anything. I think people just
And
want to hear us
by
talk.
real thing, you mean digital thing that doesn't actually physically exist. That's what you mean by real, just to be clear, right?
It's what? Digital things are real and have feelings.
Yeah, Matt, we are talking to Chris here.
It's true. Well, the digital image of Chris,
Yeah.
which is, yes.
All right.
What's in our, quote, studio right now.
Beard.exe.
It's my favorite file to run. Hey, have you guys read this? That Reddit is now being bought by Tencent.
Not being bought.
Is now
Being invested into by Tencent.
nitpicking.
Yeah, it's pretty different.
It is different.
The Chinese Communist Party has seized control
Of Reddit.
all of Reddit. Everyone,
You heard it here first.
Everyone who is on Reddit is now owned, at least in part, by Xi Jinping.
Until Xi Jinping discovers some of the stuff that's on Reddit, and then he will run away screaming.
Not come after us?
Come after what?
Us? I mean, we're owned. Anyone on Reddit now. I just told you, everyone on Reddit is now partially owned by the Chinese Communist Party.
Do you think you'll ever get that interview with Xi Jinping?
No, I
Chris?
think once Xi Jinping finds out about some of the Reddit subreddits, he's gonna
It's like a normal person looking at 4chan.
something like that.
Just what corner of the internet have I stumbled upon?
Maybe it's like when people try to understand non-Euclidean geometry and they slowly go insane.
Like H.P. Lovecraft stuff.
Yeah.
So Reddit is like Cthulhu.
I mean, kind of.
Kind of. Okay. To look upon Reddit is to go insane.
Not all of Reddit.
Not all of Reddit.
But to a degree, that's true. But at any rate, what's the actual story that's happening here?
Well, Shelley, I think you saw that Reddit was having a very interesting reaction.
Okay, so the actual thing is that Reddit next week is supposed to be getting $150 million of new funding. A large part of it, which is coming from Tencent, the Chinese internet giant that owns such popular apps as WeChat, the social media app in China where you can do everything from chat with your friends to pay for things to get arrested by the Chinese government when you say something that they don't like. So, very all-encompassing.
I think Tencent actually also owns in part or entirely the game Fortnite, which could be perfect for our China Uncensored Let's Play.
When we have to give our information to the Fortnite servers.
Probably.
I'm sure this is a great idea.
So, Shelley, what was the reaction on Reddit?
So, the reaction on Reddit is, if you went to r/pics, the couple of days after the announcement was made, basically people were posting lots of pictures of Tiananmen Square massacre, of Tank Man, of the Uyghurs in concentration camps, about Tibetans, about Falun Gong, talking about how Taiwan is independent, talking about how Hong Kong is being taken over by the Chinese Communist Party. Basically, all of the things that the Chinese Communist Party wants everybody in the West to know about.
And lots of Winnie the Pooh memes.
Yes, that is definitely the most popular. Because it's Reddit.
Because it's Reddit. Also, I assume it's a reference to the new Kingdom Hearts that's coming out, which would also be another fantastic choice for a China Uncensored Let's Play.
Is Winnie the Pooh a playable character in Kingdom Hearts?
He's at least a character that can be in your party when you go to the 100 Acres Woods.
Oh, I see. Okay. everything goes back to a China Uncensored Let's Play. That's amazing.
Oh, funny. It's almost as if one of us really wants to do this. It's almost like one of us really wants all of us to hang out after the show and have some fun playing video games. Maybe order a pizza.
Wow. That sounds fun.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it sound fun?
And live stream the whole thing.
Live stream. Well, no, it's just you get the feed of the game, so we're not actually on it. People don't. Well, the people could see us.
No, but they see the game, and then we're like the video of each of us is in the corner, right?
It can be. Others just have voices, so it could just be our voices. Which, if we're going to be sitting around eating pizza, I think I'd feel much more comfortable just having my voice.
Why don't we just do the whole thing on the podcast?
You mean and like have no visual?
I was joking, Chris.
Oh,
It is difficult to tell when I am joking.
that was a real cat whistle.
Oh, nice callback. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, thank you.
But you know what? I do have to say, I'm pretty proud of Reddit right now. And that's something I never thought I'd say. But yeah, like the R picks thing is pretty funny.
You know what, Shelley? Maybe this is your year.
Just because of the Reddit thing?
Just because of the Reddit thing.
I mean, it's early days.
Early days. Speaking of early days, we're in the middle of the early days of Venezuelan, what's the right word to use? Renaissance? Total collapse?
Transition.
Thank you, Matt.
Last week, we talked about Venezuela in a way that made it clear that none of us were experts on Venezuela.
I think we faked it pretty well.
So this week, we asked somebody to come who's actually an expert on Venezuela.
And now joining us today is Juan Ravell. He is the founder of the Venezuelan satirical news show Bipolar Capybara, or, and here's my high school Spanish coming out, El Bipolar Capybara, right?
El Chigüire
No?
Bipolar. No. Fail.
Okay.
Like, close?
So the
But
person
You
talking
got
now...
an F in Spanish, didn't you?
Even you translated half of it and you changed the order, but it's okay.
Okay. Well, so, I get an A for effort, right?
No, but anyway, you might as well continue.
Okay. Well, thank you for correcting me, Juan. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the show?
Yeah, well,
Which I will
actually,
say is like a Venezuelan China Uncensored.
Yeah, we do a bunch of different shows. We produce a satirical news show called Reporte Semanal with El Profesor Briseño. We also produce a show called Pero Tenemos Patria, which is also satirical news. And we run a website called El Chigüire Bipolar, which is sort of like what The Onion is to the U.S., but in a dictatorship in Venezuela. So we run a company that basically does political satire in Venezuela.
Sounds safe and fun.
Yeah, it is safe. I'm in Miami now, so I'm safer.
That was a good choice. Why
Yeah.
do you think authoritarian regimes love satire so much?
Oh, because it makes him feel so comfortable and at ease. I think that I've heard that the First Lady of Venezuela actually enjoyed a show that we had called Isla Presidencial, in which we featured the presidents stranded on a desert island. It was an animated series. And I was told through sources that she was a fan of the show. So maybe sometimes they actually like it.
That was the Lost parody, right?
Yeah. It was kind of like Lost meets Gilligan's Island meets Our Presidents meets South Park.
So I feel like that says something about the marriage.
She wants her husband stranded on a desert island.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
Yeah, maybe.
Was this Maduro's wife or Chavez's wife?
No, Chavez only had a wife for a brief while when he needed for elections. Maduro actually has a wife that's very politically active, and this was Maduro's wife, yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, yeah, that does say something about how she feels about Maduro. Well, so let's get right down to it. Can you describe to us what it's like in Venezuela right now?
I think that it's hard for me to have like a sense of the feeling inside, because I'm not in the country at the moment. But what I can tell you is that there is two feelings. One is that the economy, as you know, is in dire situation. We have a humanitarian crisis. There's shortage of food, shortage of medicine, and it's very precarious. But at the same time, it feels at this moment that we're nearing or closing in into a transition of power, and we're closing in into a maybe foreseeable change of regime. I wouldn't say it's a done deal. I think there's a lot needs to be done before we accomplish that. But I think there's hope for the first time in a bunch of time in Venezuela of things changing.
So you think Juan Guaido will ultimately assume leadership?
I think in a sense he already has, and he's governing in one sense. He's appointing envoys to different countries. He's working to get control of some of our assets outside of Venezuela. So he has no control in the country in terms of military or State Department or what equivalence of what the Justice Department is in Venezuela, etc. But he is not in jail because of a reason. And he's not in jail because the government knows that it would get them into trouble within our own country, because of people would be very enraged, and maybe some part of the military would be against it, and the vast majority of the international community will be heavily against it. So you have a person who controls power, who is Maduro, illegitimately, and I can explain that further if you like. And you have a person who wants to be the interim president, who is constitutionally the interim president, but is still gaining momentum. And I believe that each day that passes, he's getting more things done. So for the first time is kind of playing in favor of the opposition.
Well, between Nicolás Maduro and Juan Guaido, which one is more fun to make fun of?
Maduro is very clumsy and is like a fat, annoying guy. Guaido, we haven't started to make fun of him so much because we're figuring him out. But I would love to make fun of him as interim president, fully embedded. But I say for now, still Maduro.
I don't know why you say he's clumsy. I mean, have you seen him dance? I'm sure you have. He's been on state TV nonstop.
Yeah. Maduro is a pretty good dancer. We have to give him that. So I would love to him to retire, desert island where he has plenty of music and time to dance.
Dancing with the Stars.
Dancing with the Dictators.
Oh, well, we could do a show called Dancing with the Dictators. It could go along with our Cooking with Authority show where dictators cook.
That's great.
Yeah.
We can really provide an outlet for deposed authoritarian dictators.
Yeah, I'd love to see a cooking show with Putin and the poisonous aftermath.
Yeah. But Maduro can just do the eating. That's what he's good at, right?
Okay,
He'll be the
I didn't
taster.
suggest.
Whether it's
I'm not
steak and
suggesting
turkey
that.
Oh, no.
No, not the poison part. I just meant in general. It seems like he's very interested in good food.
Be careful, Matt. They'll say that the U.S. is now plotting to poison Maduro.
Oh, they probably already are saying that. So Maduro's in this weird situation where he obviously does not want to step down, but he also can't really get rid of Guaido.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so what is keeping Maduro in power still?
Well, basically, I think Maduro is in power because of the military support, and I would say not the whole military, but the upper ranges of the military who are in business with the regime. So some control parts of the oil sector, some control part of the gold, some control construction, some control food distribution, whatever. So there's different branches control different things, and they're in business with him and with the regime. So they support him because they haven't yet seen an offer from the other side that's juicy enough for them to say, okay, we'll stop supporting you, we'll support the other one. I believe that process is being talked about at the moment. So we're in the middle of possibly negotiations, but it's hard to say because the military in Venezuela is like a black box. It's very, very, very hard to get a decent source and decent perspectives from what's happening inside because they're heavily surveilled by the Cubans, which are embedded in their armed forces.
What is the purpose of the Cubans embedded in the military?
So the Cubans, they have a lot to gain. For one, Maduro is their puppet, and they convinced Chavez of selecting Maduro as a successor because they have a very good grip on him. He was trained there. He went there. He has a very close relationship to the Cubans. The Cubans get a lot of oil from us, basically free oil for this consulting they do, and so that's basically the relationship. Is money, is power, and is their way of sustaining themselves.
So you think Cuba's controlling a lot of things behind the scenes, or
Cuba,
has been?
Yeah, for sure. I think I wouldn't say in order who, but I think Cuba and Russia later, and a little bit of China as well. I wouldn't say a little bit.
Well, so obviously, since you mentioned China, I do want to ask a bit about China's role in all of this. So I guess China's main concern right now is if Guaido does become the new president and ousts Maduro, will he change Venezuela's relationship with China? So
Guaido, the interim president, recently sent a message to the Chinese saying that it would be more intelligent of them to support him and support the transition because then they would have a chance of getting the money that they loaned us back and getting new deals with Venezuela. So Guaido is not close to having deals with China later on. And I think the Chinese are open, and they say recently that they have talked to both sides. China is not aligned with most of the international community at the moment. They're what they say pro-dialogue. When they say pro-dialogue, is people who acknowledge Maduro as president and just want things to length and stand and maybe keep Maduro in power. So that's Russia, that's Mexico, that's China, Bolivia, Nicaragua, North Korea, Syria, lovely countries. And I think that they are interested in talking to Guaido. Reports say they have been contacts with the opposition, but the support of Maduro hasn't been as strong as you would have suspected in this moment. They seem neutral. They're supporting Maduro, but behind the scenes, it hasn't been as strong. There's no new deals of oil. There's no lending of money. They're basically doing nothing in terms of new assistance. So in a way, weirdly, it seems like they're supporting the transition more than the Russians. So, and maybe that's because they see that it's a bad deal to do business with people who are not good at keeping promises. So I wouldn't say they fully supporting Guaido, but by doing not that much, they're letting things evolve.
Well, but they also want their money back, right?
Yeah, so they're intelligent in that way. So they don't want to seem like a big antagonist to Guaido because they want to keep in business. And we have lots of oil in Venezuela. They're probably interested in that as well.
So obviously China hopes if Guaido does come to power, he'll keep the status quo with China, keep things the same. Do you think Guaido might do that as a sort of bargaining chip to get China's support?
It's possible. It's possible. And I think that he needs to do everything necessary to finish with the transition and get our institutions back together, and then we can reassemble the country. But of course, when you're in a transition and you're negotiating, you're going to have to lose some and win some to get things done. So I wouldn't be overly critical of him if he does that, actually.
So one thing I've been hearing in the United States is that Guaido, this whole thing is actually a secret plot by the United States and the Trump administration to overthrow the democratically elected Maduro.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a line of logic that I hear from time to time. What do you think about that? Is Maduro actually the legitimate democratically elected president of Venezuela, and Guaido is just some coup attempt by the United States?
Well, this is a Venezuelan-made resistance, and we finally have the support of the international community, and part of that international community is the U.S. So this is not a U.S.-backed coup at all. This is a strategy devised by the opposition, slowly and carefully, with very well-thought steps, and it just made sense to do that this year on the 10th of January, and I can explain why we got to that point.
Please.
So, yeah, so in the 17th century, no, I'm kidding. So in 2015,
Oh, too much.
in 2015, we have our last sort of free election, because it's never a free election in Venezuela, but we have an election with some guarantees, and the opposition ended up winning the majority of the National Assembly. That is like Congress. We have no two cameras. We have only one camera. So we won 2/3 majority, like great election. And once they set up and starting acting and summoning ministers to go and testify before our National Assembly, they wouldn't show up. They wouldn't respond. So they started ignoring the National Assembly. So 2015, we have our last free election. We win the majority in the National Assembly. 2017, there's a new branch of government invented by Maduro called the National Constitutional Assembly, which is like a parallel National Assembly, which they would control. They did a fake election where they won, obviously, and they annulled the National Assembly and created this new branch that called upon presidential elections, and they set up another fake election in which Maduro won with no alternative from the opposition. They were all in exile or in jail or prohibited to run. So he obviously won in an election that nobody from a democratic country accepted. So basically it was a sham election in 2017, and his term ended in 2018. So Maduro was sworn in by the Supreme Court. He should have been sworn in the National Legitimate Assembly, but he wasn't. He was sworn in the Supreme Court, and it was basically a sham. He's not constitutionally allowed to do that. He's not the president because it was a fake election. And the Constitution says that when you have a vacancy of power, the president of the National Assembly becomes the interim president of Venezuela. And the president of the National Assembly on January 2019 is Juan Guaido. So he's legitimately the interim president. Of course, he hasn't taken over power because of the military reasons we discussed earlier, but this is not a coup. This is a very valid constitutional crisis that is not only supported by the Constitution, but the vast majority of Venezuelans. I believe that around 80 to 85% of people in Venezuela are against Maduro and support this. It's hard to say exact numbers, but it's a general feeling. They failed miserably at the economy. They failed miserably in 20 years of revolution, and people want to change, but he's really stubborn about it. And when we hear that this is a U.S.-backed coup, it's very it's sort of, Debbie Downer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've heard of her.
Yes, so it's our Living Donor moment with some pundits in the U.S. and abroad that it's very sad for us to hear that because he's basically from a neo-informed position.
It sounds like it. And just for clarification, when you said like the past 20 years of revolution, you're including in that Hugo Chavez's time as president of Venezuela.
I think, Chavez is part of this. Chavez set up the whole system that's sustaining Maduro. And Chavez, if he were alive, I'd say probably he'd be in the same mess. So I think this is basically a continuation of what he set up.
Well, since you mentioned the sham elections, this is one of my concerns with like any country that is dealing with China, that China exports its authoritarian control. So, for example, with the sham elections, Maduro had Venezuelans using the Fatherland card, which was a national identification card that was built by a Chinese state-linked company, ZTE. And it could track, amongst other things, it tracked lots of personal information, but it also tracked whether or not people voted in this sham election.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like that is a way that, China's authoritarian state is helping to prop up the same kind of system in Venezuela.
Yeah, that's probably correct. And I think that the similarities are not only ideological, but in the form of government. The disregard for democracy and democratic ways is what keeps these talks together. So that's Putin and Maduro probably don't have much in common in the sense of ideology, but in the sense of...
I've never seen Xi Jinping dance.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if Putin likes empanadas or Maduro likes caviar, but probably he does. And the thing is, I
Who doesn't
think
like empanadas?
Yeah, I think they just like power, and they need antagonists like the U.S., and they need also full control of the country to govern, because in a democratic, transparent election, they would be done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it was pretty genius for Maduro to make up an entire new National Assembly and call it the National Constitutional Assembly, which sounds even more legitimate than the National Assembly, right?
It's like the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. So democratic, so run by the people.
Yeah. And one thing that it's amazing about this situation that we're in is that the regime has been very intelligent in promoting and making the opposition fight between each other with weird incentives to some parties. So their strategy has worked, and they've been having the opposition under control for a while, but they kind of missed the ball on this one. They I don't know, they were distracted. They were thinking that they were like very confident, but this kid Guaido, he's 35 years old, and he embodied what all of us in Venezuela wanted, which is someone who really stood up, somebody who was for real change and wasn't afraid of the consequences. And I think in part the success of what the opposition is having right now is that a lot of the decisions are not made in a broad consensus with everybody. There's unity, but there's a small group of people in the opposition running the show, and that makes decision making easier, and that makes the decisions better timed. And so we're following a very intelligent strategy, which is basically tell the international community and inside Venezuela that first Maduro needs to resign, then we need a transition to reestablish the democratic system, and then we need elections. Elections is the third part, because if we have elections right now, we're not ready because the institutions are not set up.
Any fear that Guaido might set himself up as president for a little longer than the interim?
They're passing a new law in the legitimate National Assembly, which says that he shouldn't be in there for more than 1 year. And I believe the law says that he can't run. So in that election, probably a lot of people would want him to run, but I think it's a good strategy, and and very well thought that he shouldn't run, because we need to feel like he's really in charge of a transition, not a new government, just a transition to democracy, and then we can decide what we want.
So here's a question. You said like this law is passed in the National Assembly. So there are two assemblies kind of both happening right now? Like is the National Assembly is still, even though it was disbanded by Maduro, it's still passing laws and things like that?
Yeah, they're both working. It's the same building. One gets out, the other gets in. It's very surreal.
The same building?
Yeah, well, it's the same building, but I think they're using two separate chambers.
I can see how you have a lot of material for your show.
Yes, we have lots of material. And
Look, do they share the same cafeteria?
I think the ones they come in on Tuesdays and the other sessions at Wednesday or Thursday. So they try to avoid each other.
I can understand why. And at least they're both only working 1 day a week.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want our legislators working too hard.
Yeah.
So I guess I have one final question. There's a movement in the United States of democratic socialists. I was wondering, do you think Venezuela offers any lessons about socialism, like what works or what doesn't work?
Well, I would say that most of it doesn't work, but I heard President Trump in the State of the Union address, and it was I'm not very happy in turning this debate about socialism and not socialism. I think our basic discussion at the moment is democracy. We even have socialists within the opposition. We have some socialist parties that work within the oppositions and are aligned with this transition. I personally am not a supporter of socialism, but I wouldn't say this is a discussion about how not only socialism failed. This is a discussion how democracy failed. Because if we were to have a functioning democracy, they would have been out a long time ago, and we wouldn't have gotten to this point. So it's failed policies for sure, but it's a failure of democracy.
Oh, that was very well said.
What do you see happening in the next few months in Venezuela? And how long do you think this whole process will take?
Yes, I'm not sure how long this will take, and I see the U.S. sanctions, deepening the crisis, probably in the first step, and I see the regime trying to divide the opposition, basically. So I think this is on our hands in the sense that if the opposition remains united and with a clear message and with a clear strategy like they have been for this year, which feels like 20 years, this whole 1 month, I believe we have a chance. I wouldn't say we're out of the woods. I wouldn't say this is a quick thing. I think things need to get a little bit more extreme before they really start negotiating. And I believe the role of the international community is very important.
Absolutely.
What can the international community do?
For example, if you if the European Union helps with the sanctions and helps with the sanctions on oil, it would probably be helpful to finish the economic. I would say I'm not sure how to say this in English, but it's basically it's a chess game, and you need to put your pieces well timed and well oriented in one same strategy. And what we don't need at this moment is a stalling negotiation process, because stalling negotiation process is just oxygen for them. And what we need is unity and for Guaido to gain power. For example, I believe Luxembourg already recognized Guaido as president, and I believe they have a lot of money from crooks from Venezuela, so they need to start working on getting that money back. So once Guaido starts getting money and maybe control of Citgo, which is a Venezuelan's own company in the U.S., then it not only has legitimacy, it not only has some sort of popularity inside the country and charisma, but he also has money. And once that starts happening, we're getting closer to a real transition.
Do you think Maduro might get nervous and start using the military to put down protests and things like that?
He already has. There's been reports of death, and the thing is, the new thing is that these are not in the what they call the east of Caracas, which is like the middle and upper classes. This is in low-income neighborhoods where people are protesting, and they're sending the parallel armed forces to get that under control. So he kind of already has. There's a news development that is going to be interesting in the following weeks, which is the entering of humanitarian aid through the border from Colombia to Venezuela, and maybe even Brazil. That's going to be interesting because if the government that doesn't recognize a humanitarian crisis accepts the humanitarian aid that was asked for by Guaido, in a sense, they're legitimating Guaido. But if they don't accept the humanitarian aid, they're negating people basic things that save lives and that we really need. So they're in a terrible position at the moment with, and that's one of the things that makes me a little positive, is that the initiative is coming from the opposition. We're not reacting. We're acting, and the government is in the defense.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Juan, thank you so much for joining me today. If somebody wanted to watch your show or learn more about you and what you do, or the situation in Venezuela, where should they go?
Well, you can enter Chigüire which is ELCHIGUREBIPOLAR.com. I don't know if that's going to be helpful.
We'll provide a link.
Yeah, provide a link, please. And you can put Google Translate, and maybe you'll get some of the jokes. And you can also watch our shows on YouTube, which is Reporte Semanal and Pero Tenemos Patria, which translate to But We Have a Fatherland.
Beautiful. All right, thank you so much for taking time to speak to us today, Juan.
Well, thank you, guys. Thank you for the time and for the opportunity to talk about our country.
All right, guys, I guess that's the end of the podcast. Who wants to order the pizza?
I was going to say, can we do a Let's Play about Venezuela?
Is there a Venezuelan video game? There might be.
There might be, but you can't get very good internet connection there.
But we're not there. Like, I'm saying a video game set in Venezuela.
No, I think Matt's thinking that we need to do the Let's Play in Venezuela.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. We do it. We go to Venezuela. It's like I talked about on the last podcast. Like, this is a great time to go to Venezuela because it'll be super interesting.
So, all right, so we'll go to Venezuela and stay in a room and play a video game.
Perfect. I think it's a good compromise between me wanting to go and you being terrified of going.
I would not phrase it as I'm terrified of anything. I fear nothing.
But you also think it's an unwise decision.
It's Chris being prudent.
Prudent, wise.
That
Playing my cards carefully, which, when we're playing Mario Party, and there's a card game in Mario Party, you'll see how prudent I am with my cards.
Okay, well, we will see. But at any rate, thank you for listening to us ramble on.
Are you trying to steal my thunder with a sign-off, Matt?
Yes.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to subscribe to us, and, the reviews, good reviews, 5 stars, give those to us. And we'll talk to you next week. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell.
I'm Shelley Jong.
And I'm Matt Canesta.
Goodbye.